So what I was going to do, apropos our discussion about Disneyland just now, I was going to do a Mickey Mouse voice. Then I realized I can't do a Mickey Mouse voice. So I'm just going to do a regular Paul voice. But I want this is going to be on the podcast because I want everyone to know that I had the idea.
I figured, yeah. So
Okay.
now what I want to hear is you as Paul, like do the speech pattern.
I thought you were going to do Mickey Mouse doing an impression of Paul then.
No, that's super difficult because you have to do a high voice pretending to be a low voice. Like it's so hard.
How do you do that?
No, do the voice inflections, without it actually being the pitch.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Ha ha!
There you go.
As you know, this is Measure of an Episode. I can't even think about how would Mickey Mouse say it. This is Measure of an Episode. Where is our continuing mission? To is that? Now I want to go and speed it up just to see if I'm at all on point of what Mickey Mouse would sound like. Where it is our continuing mission to seek out new episodes of Star Trek. What's our blurb? Where is our continuing mission to discover? No. What do we say?
Explore.
To explore. What makes a Star Trek episode a genuine Star Trek episode, and not just an episode from the original series of Star Trek?
Oh, the battle. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
yep.
Which this episode is. I am Paul.
I'm Jonathan, and we do this with 3 criteria, which, hang on, is...
3 criteria is... Let's hear it.
Well, yeah, it's our... I've always assumed the 3 criteria is a thing. Like it's...
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Number 1, broken down into the 3 parts are... is there science fiction embedded in the plot and required for the plot to be? Number 2, is that science fiction unique or novel in some way? And number 3, is there a moral or ethical dilemma for a character to resolve? Man, we haven't done this in a while.
I know it sounded like you were reading it off of Wikipedia, but it was in Mandarin.
Oh no! It was just loading. I've got it on a JPEG, and I'm on a dial-up, and so.
Have we even said the word Star Trek yet in our Star Trek podcast? Yeah, we did at the beginning. We did. So, do you want another chance at that, or should we keep that?
No, I got it. I covered it all.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
We got it. All right.
It took me a while, but I got there.
Yeah. We know. We know that it took you.
And so this week we watched The Battle, which is the 8th episode of season 1.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
And if we want to wait while I pull up the blurb.
After waiting for a response to their hails for 3 days, Captain Picard finds that the Ferengi have discovered the Stargazer, his old ship. And okay, so this is a very disturbing episode. Not in content for me, but okay, so this is probably our first season 1, especially early season 1 Star Trek episode that we've watched, or next gen episode that we've watched.
I think so, yeah.
I just don't remember how alike this first season is to the original series, or this episode is very much from the cloth of the original series, because it so felt alien to Next Generation.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. Because it felt like all the lighting is super hard, and it doesn't feel just as polished as a normal Next Gen. And I don't know if this is because I'm used to watching the latter episodes and the latter seasons. Did it feel this way to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think about a third of the way through, I was very much believing that this episode was they went into
like a rewrite or something.
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry's folders and just kind of dusted it off, and they were like, okay, let's find and replace Kirk with Picard.
Right. Even the opening scene where Picard is essentially reading the Netflix blurb to us. That room that they're in is obviously his quarters, I'm guessing. But I would thought, are they on a different ship? Are they on? It didn't feel like it was his quarters, nor did it feel like it was on the Enterprise, because he has a fish in there. I know he has a fish in his ready room. Is he like a weird closeted fish advocate?
Is he Troy McClure?
Who is that? I don't get it.
Oh, that's a Simpsons reference. Troy McClure is the actor who does everything, and he wound up marrying one of the twins, Patty or Selma, to prove that he wasn't a fish fetishist. So, yeah. Now the joke is even funnier since I've explained it.
Well, I've never watched Simpsons, so how would I know? But you're right. It's much funnier now.
I can tell with how hard you're laughing.
Well, even down, so the lighting and the acting seems a little bit notched up, and complete with sort of the extroverted / shady alien. You know, like the main Ferengi guy is just that kind of, you know, how all of the aliens or villains were on TOS. They were just sort of these outwardly gushing characters that were always yelling.
Right.
You know, gregariously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very one note. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the music was very old fashioned and very kind of overbearing. I don't know. It just felt like they had somehow digitally replaced all of the original series characters with next gen characters.
Being within the first half of the first season, it had to have been, I'd like to think that it was intentional. They're basically using TOS scripts to try and draw in the fans, you know, and kind of say look, this is...
It's familiar in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, it's new actors, but obviously we couldn't use the old ones anymore. So here are scripts here are stories that you know, characters that you will immediately recognize, and
in an aesthetic that people will recognize, obviously.
Right.
And they kind of did, I don't know, I didn't like this part where Crusher comes in at the very beginning and he's like, I have a headache. She's like, a what? A headache. I just read about them. And she's like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this. And they do this back and forth for 30 seconds about headaches and how they just don't happen anymore. And I was like, okay, I get it, but does it have to be something, does it have to be that tongue-in-cheek? Do you have to be so funny about it, right? I can't think of the right word. But you know what I mean? Couldn't it have been something a little bit more rare that people don't have every single day of their lives? Maybe it needed to be this so it could be what it became, the show, but it just felt like sci-fi medical porn to me.
Well, not even, because it wasn't, they didn't say, oh, well, I guess they did by mapping the brain. But it didn't feel like medical porn because I didn't feel like they were providing something that hasn't happened yet, that there wasn't anything medically described aside from her just commenting that when the brain was fully mapped, we got rid of colds too, which doesn't seem to really make sense.
Right. They're just trying to say we're in the future, things are better, we still have our problems, but you don't have these old things that you used to have, audience.
Right.
And it's just okay, we got it. You know, we're in the future. Let's get back to the...
Yeah, we got that by the fact that you're flying around in space.
Yeah, we can't do that yet. So we'll do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was very much intentional to talk about just how advanced society has become and the medical advancements we've had. And obviously we're coming at it from 30 years later, but it would have been nice if it had been, I think in a later season, it would have been downplayed more.
Well, why not make it something, I don't know, like a rash of some kind or acne, right? Things that feel like not everybody has them every single day. Like if somebody were to say, I can see it being in a House episode, a Dr. Gregory House, whatever, House MD, where someone's like, someone has polio. They came with polio. It's like, what do you mean? We eradicated polio 100 years ago. Why they don't have polio tested again? Like, no, we checked it. It's polio. And that would be the interest of the episode. It's not like something more random. You know what I mean? That makes more sense than a headache. And then them saying oh, we don't get headaches anymore. Surely you're mistaken. Are you sure?
Go back to work. You're wrong.
Yeah. You don't have a headache. Now run along. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt a little too on the nose.
Other than the dialogue, what was your frustration with that? Because the headache was kind of crucial to the episode.
I felt like they could have had some sort of manifestation of how he was being affected by this orb or whatever. That wasn't just sort of simpleton thing that it just was very uncreative to me. Give him lose the ability to see color, or give him make his hearing diminished, or the inability to taste, or something like that. Mess with him in a way that doesn't happen to everyone every day, where you're not just trying to signal that we don't get headaches anymore. You know, it's
gotcha. Okay.
Make it more interesting than I'm just been getting these headaches. It almost felt like it was an episode of Murder, She Wrote. You know?
Right. Well, or like the Loaxana episode where everybody was getting headaches around her.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where it's just people get these transient headaches whenever she walks around. That's better than starting it out with, oh, we don't get headaches anymore.
Actually, yeah. Well, and just with that thing that I just said, clearly that's not true. Just a couple of years later, that people don't get headaches. Like
they get them fine. Yeah.
Right. They very quickly realize, well, that's just ridiculous. Like,
well, or Crusher was just the terrible doctor.
She just turns down medical treatment because, like,
she's never heard of it.
They're wrong. Yeah. Like, I broke my leg. Oh, people don't break their legs. Go back to work.
Yeah. So clearly it's not broken. Next. This doctor thing is easy.
Good thing I'm not getting paid for this.
She does this thing, too, that happens a lot. I don't know if I think it's in every single Star Trek, where the doctor will come in and just spray somebody, them unknowing, like hypospray them with something, and they're like, what was that? It's like, I feel like their reaction is very understated for having just been drugged and dosed with something you have no idea what it is. What was that? That never happens.
Oh, wait. No, that's not true. It happens all the time. Like, they give them the hypospray in their neck, and the person's like, no, wait, you can...
Yeah, but it's funnier when they're in mid-sentence. Right? That doesn't happen.
No, wait, I'm allergic to...
Crusher, you overleave them. Yeah.
Or just when they want them to stop, give them a numbing agent.
But they insist on continuing out their duties on the bridge.
Right.
It just turns into a Dudley Moore movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so the Ferengi, they beam over, and there's this big mystery as to why the Ferengi have called them there, and they've just been making them wait for 3 days. And I guess that is, in retrospect, so their grip on Picard with this orb can gain purchase.
Oh, yeah, but that was never explained. Yeah.
They never say that, but I'm guessing that is the implication. Right. We're supposed to infer that.
Yeah.
But so they're about to beam over, and I did notice something, a couple of things about this one scene, is that number one, the bridge is super crowded with people. And I can't wait to watch more season 1 episodes to see if that was sort of the aesthetic of season 1, where they wanted a bunch of people, sort of a hustle and bustling kind of area,
right? Versus
later where there are very few people. There maybe is one kind of extra at the back of the bridge doing stuff. Otherwise, and maybe the helmswoman, and otherwise it is empty with just the main characters. But here there were 3 or 4 people kind of walking around and walking in front of Picard as he's doing his captaining.
Right.
That struck me as like, oh, this is very interesting. This is obviously a season 1. They're still working their stuff out.
Yeah, they're still, yeah, exactly.
So that's interesting. The other thing I noticed is the Ferengi. And so if we take Quark as the Paragon Ferengi, the one who we sort of think of when we think of a Ferengi because of Deep Space Nine.
Uh-huh.
And we take these guys, and obviously they're the first time we've met the Ferengi, I'm guessing, in Star Trek. And they, like I had said before, they feel like your typical villain from the original series, which is just overly effuse and kind of shady, though, like a carpet salesman type of personality, a car salesman. And so, but the way that the other, and even the main guy, I forget their names, the captain or whatever, and his 2 lieutenants, they're kind of playing it like the Dweeb Squad. They're kind of like, if you were to take Nerds, that movie Nerds, isn't there a movie called Nerds or the Nerd Squad or something like that?
Right. Gotcha.
They're playing it like those guys? I don't know, did that stick out to you?
It didn't until you said that, but absolutely it does. They very much have, like, instead of snarling, if they were snickering, that's exactly what it would be. Just those computer nerds from 80s and 90s high school sitcom shows.
Right.
Where they're just kind of standing off on the side, like giggling and snickering at each other for the fact that they're talking to a girl. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It felt that way. I mean, it probably partly to blame are the mouth prosthetics that they were wearing, where they just can't talk because they're so big. Their speech is totally impeded.
Yeah. I mean, the teeth do look great, but
they look cool.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. So one of the captain of the ship actually played two other characters in the Star Trek series, and it was always Ferengi, and it was always a different Ferengi. And I find that really strange. Like, if you're going to bring back the same actor to play the same alien, why not have it be the same captain?
Well, I get the impression that at the end of this episode that he's dealt with. He's
right.
sent to
Yeah,
jail.
he's relieved of commission. Yeah.
Right.
But he still, circumstances change. Like, the captain has been relieved of duty and got it back.
Well, and you could see that perhaps because it is such a more money-oriented, wealth-oriented society that maybe he bought his way out. Because he's obviously very wealthy because he has two of those orbs that are apparently very rare and very hard to get.
Right.
And so he's a very wealthy person, so maybe he bought his way out of jail.
Yeah. And then this character, the captain, actually does come back in a later, I think a season 6 episode, and it's played by a different actor.
It's very confusing.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if this was true for you. I did not know that so Picard is recounting his Stargazer story when the Ferengi presented as their gift. Mm-hmm. And I did not know that this was when the Picard maneuver was established. I thought it was established in that kind of War Games episode between Geordi and they find this other ship. And I don't know. I don't want to go into that episode, but that's when they brought it up, and not in this particular episode where he sort of just talks about it.
Right. Well, I think the episode that you're thinking of, the reason why it's remembered that way is because that's the episode where we see it. And I thought we were going to see it in this episode.
That's what I thought too. Is like, oh, this is that episode? Because there was another ship another derelict, abandoned ship that they were going to use, that they use in both episodes. Mm-hmm, so, so it was odd to me that two things were established in this very strange episode of Next Generation that play huge roles in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, but it's not the episode that you remember those things in.
No, not at all. In fact, I did not like this episode at all. Nothing about it.
You didn't even like it. Like, you didn't like it for it being a TOS episode?
I mean, I guess, but I mean, I thought it was a terrible Magnum PI episode too. As long as it's a next gen episode, like, to me, it's like, I don't know, it wasn't that good. It was sort of adjacent. It was like Star Trek adjacent for some reason to me. Did you like it?
I mean, I did. I'm still trying to consider whether or not it's a proper Star Trek. But I did enjoy it because it actually, for being so early in the series, it provided a lot of character development for Picard. Just talking about like his experience on the Constellation cruiser. What was it called? The Stargazer. Mm-hmm. And for not being a character episode, I thought it was really cool to see character moments this early on in the series.
Yeah, it was nice to see that he had a life beforehand, and everybody can relate to, if you see old pictures of your old dorm room or an old house, you're like, oh, that would be cool to walk around in there. And he got that opportunity to sort of walk around at his old home, essentially.
Right.
So that was an interesting kind of thing. I felt like, in terms of it being character development, I felt like I didn't quite understand what the point of the episode was. Because I'm just going to jump to the end here. So the end is the Ferengi are controlling Picard for him to relive this infamous day where people we're unsure if Picard fired first upon this other spacecraft or if they started firing on him, and that's kind of the conceit of the episode is like, we don't know. And obviously we find out that Picard, he wasn't firing on anything, that they fired on him. Am I getting this right? I'm trying to remember what happened. It's so jumbled because I don't understand was he supposed to die in this creation that the Ferengi guy made for him? Like, what was the point of making him relive it by controlling his mind?
So the Ferengi captain wanted Picard to lose everything in the same way that the Ferengi captain did. So he wanted Picard to think that the Enterprise was the Ferengi ship, and he was going to have Picard use the Picard maneuver in the Stargazer again to destroy the Enterprise.
That seems like a long way to go. Just to kill Picard.
Well, but it wasn't to kill Picard. It was to make him suffer the same way that the captain did. Yeah.
To vanquish Picard, whether it's his career, his life, or his actual life. Like to affect him. Why not just cut his nuts off or something? Like, did you have to go through all of this to to get back at him. It just seems like it wasn't just, oh, I want you to die in this terrible way, the way my father died or whatever the storyline was. It was, I want you to kill thousands of people on this ship in this weird way. Like he was just reliving this thing where, I mean, it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense to me with the amount of time they spent on it. It wasn't this grand reveal at the end where it's like, oh, I get it now. I get why they went through this whole thing so we could relive it, whatever. But I don't know. It seemed like just cut his nuts off. Call it a day.
It is a very elaborate plan for revenge, but it's also been however many years, and I feel like, you know, it probably started that way, and then he found out about this neural transmitter, and, you know, and he was like, or I could control Picard. And then he got the savings and he bought one, and he found out that you need two. And he's already halfway invested, you know, so he's like, well, now I got to get the second one.
It's the whole game we play with iPhones and charger cables. Same thing.
Right. Yeah. You know, now we got this piece. No, I feel like it's, you're eating pizza with friends, you know, and like, there's still 2 slices left after all of you have finished 2 pizzas and you're full, but the 2 slices are still there and everybody else is done, you know? And you're like, well, nobody's going to take home these 2 pieces. Well, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess, you know? And like, you just have at it.
Yeah, and we all know how that works out. Mm-hmm. Because normally we would do that.
By losing your captain commission.
He should have done the pizza gag. Damn it. Remember when we were in marching band that one time, and we would always go to Pizza Hut at 11:15, and then everybody would order their own pizza, and we just sit there and eat pizza at 11:15, and then the next day wake up, feel great.
Yep, Saturday morning, feeling great because we ate a whole pizza the night before.
We ate a whole pizza.
We hung out with friends. Forget what we were doing because that didn't matter. We hung out with friends.
Right.
Like
I guess that's
now. Eating a whole pizza the next morning, we absolutely would know.
Right. Man, I wish I had those days back where you could just eat anything.
Right.
I don't care about friends.
Well, could you, like, do you want to though? I mean, there are some things that I'm like, man, I wish I could eat that and enjoy it and not have any consequences later. But there are other things, you know, like Hostess cupcakes, and I'm trying to think of some other things, like the super sugary cereals that, you know, like I never had in my house, and so at sleepovers I would always eat the entire box. But now, like, we buy occasionally like the Trader Joe's sugary cereals. And I'll have like half a bowl, and you know, I'm like, it's too sweet. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like you know, and so there are some things like I wish that I could just grab and eat without having any consequences with it. But for the most part, like, I kind of got to enjoy those things at the time where I did enjoy them. You know, now I try to do it, and I'm like, nah, it's not what I remember it tasting, or it's too much, you know, so like I can cut myself off. But
yeah, I mean, even if I were to have like a Reese's peanut butter cup, I mean, I wouldn't get sick or anything, but I'd feel it, be like, oh, this is like too much. There's too much stuff that I'm not used to having. And I for me, it's not so much could I eat, you know, to overeat a bunch of bad stuff, but to just be able to eat in excess, I guess, even if it's healthy food. Like, you could just eat. I don't know. I don't know if you're the same way, but I have this problem where if I eat too much, I don't sleep very well, and so I can't eat too much at dinner, and sometimes I want to, and so I would like to be able to do that, a la, you know,
high school.
High school, where you can just eat whatever you want, stuffed crust with extra cheese, extra pepperoni,
and immediately go to bed. Yeah.
Immediately go to bed. Immediately, like you drive home, don't undress, fall into bed.
And just fall into more bread.
So yeah, obviously the Ferengi had many options to carry out. They could just make Picard eat a whole pizza by himself, and that would be enough punishment.
What does that mean, Paul? I don't think our listeners will know.
Can I at least have some wine? No, Picard.
And now it's time for bed.
No.
That's why he was having such bad dreams.
Too much sodium. So yeah, okay. So you're right. Okay, so it was to have him kill the Enterprise, which I feel like the Stargazer is no match for the Enterprise. No matter how many Picard maneuvers he does, they're going to be like, oh well, he's shooting at us. Let's grab a tractor beam. It's sort of like the 5-year-old who wants to beat you up, you just kind of hold him by the head.
Right.
Do anything.
Super irritated. Right. Yeah, I mean, knowing he's going to do the Picard maneuver, it already is going to be less effective because they can just put up the shields right away. Like it doesn't matter where you're going to fire. It's a weaker ship.
Well, not to mention he's ordering ghost crew members to do stuff who aren't really there. So there's nobody touching anything on the helm. I mean, I think eventually he sits down at the helm.
Well, and also, again, this was explained, the Ferengi reprogrammed, and this creates so many more questions, but he reprogrammed the bridge for the computer to respond to any of Picard's commands. If you can have a captain run an entire ship by himself by having the computer take care of everything, why do you need anyone else on the bridge?
Which leads to that one awesome Beverly Crusher episode where people keep disappearing on the ship, but everybody doesn't notice. They just feel that it has always been that way. And then that last scene with Picard where she says, "Where's everybody else on the ship?" He's like, "What are you talking about? We've never needed anybody else on the ship." This is the episode that they're drawing from. This one.
He's like, "Don't you remember the Stargazer?"
Yeah, surely you remember. I had a headache then. Remember the headache? So I seem to remember a headache, yes.
Right. Well, yeah, and then Tapestry. Worf gets headaches. Sorry, just remembering episodes where headaches are crucial plot points.
Crusher's just a bad doctor. That's why we need Pulowski back.
She just refuses to accept headaches. She's never had one, so she just believes they're made up. Like, it's strictly psychological.
Testicular cancer does not exist. Oh, I've never had it. But the only other interesting thing that happens on this show is that Majel Barrett is not the voice of the computer. Didn't sound like her. I mean, it may very well be her, just in a different tone of voice, but I don't think it's her.
Right. No. There were a couple places where I heard the same thing. You know, I was like, wait, is that Majel Barrett?
No, I don't. I guess we could look it up, but we don't do that on the show.
No, actually, I do have it. No, it actually doesn't say anything about it. Anyway,
so there wasn't much computer talk anyway. I think it happens once or twice. Right. Yeah, I don't know. Not a good episode for me, and also don't believe it's a genuine Star Trek episode at all. There's not much science fiction in this. There's good character stuff where he talks about the Picard maneuver, but that's just a story.
Right.
And really the majority of the episode is him dreaming about doing the Picard maneuver. It's sort of like there are those, actually it's kind of well done, you know, for 1980, whatever, 87, whatever it came out, but not 88. They had those ghost crew members on the Stargazer, and there was fire, and I can imagine that being pretty cool for the time. So that looked good, but not a lot of science fiction happening in the show. And even Data is underplayed. He just sort of does a weird look at Wesley. I mean, everybody does that because everybody hates Wesley. But
so this is the episode that started the hate. Yeah, it did.
How so?
Well, so to go back to the special effects, it was done with a Steadicam, and they just kept the camera in the same place, and they filmed the scene with the crew and the fire, and then they had Picard do his scenes, and then they overlay and did the transparency at like 50%. So his scene was full, and and there was enough translucency in the characters to make it look like the ghosts.
Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah. And then this episode, Will Wheaton believes this is the episode that made everybody turn on Wesley, which is really sad since it was so early on. But he talks about how he happened to glance at Crusher's medical record of Picard's brainwave, and he was looking at the wavelength signature that was coming from the Ferengi ship, and he was the one who noticed that they were connected. Not the android, not the Starfleet professionals, but just this student. And he noticed that they were the same. And then when they walked out, he's like, "You're welcome, ladies." Adults.
Grown up, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It was so un-Star Trek to me. And maybe I'm saying that with the benefit of hindsight, of knowing what the show becomes. But it does feel. I mean, I can see. I mean, he's just as, I guess, hateable in this as he is in every other episode. And that's nothing to say to Will Wheaton. I think he did the job that he was asked to do. I think the writing may have been somewhat just laborious with him.
They didn't know the character, and it was adults writing for a kid. Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel science fiction-y.
Right.
So I say nay. Nay.
Well, so I mean, it did have the mind control.
I guess. I mean, it didn't feel like yes, it felt like the episode was it required that thing, but it could have been anything, I guess. It could have also just been like another empath on the other ship doing something. I don't know. It didn't feel
unique.
Authentic. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, kind of along those lines, just to cover them all, was there a moral or ethical dilemma? Because I feel like it was just a challenge to overcome. I don't feel like anybody was actually internally struggling with anything.
Not really. I mean, I think that there was the ethical and moral dilemma of whether or not Picard shot first.
Yeah.
But that wasn't... I think what was happening was everybody thought that Picard would never do that. And it would have been interesting. I actually don't know how the episode ends up. Does he end up that he actually did shoot first? I don't remember. But if it did, then maybe it's a little bit better in my book, because I felt like that's a better character moment where here's this captain who seems to be infallible, made a mistake, and it was a big mistake, and it cost a lot of people's lives. And while maybe not he's a villain or something like that,
right?
And that would have been more interesting to explore, but I feel like they don't. In fact, I still can't remember where they come down on that mystery, because there was a log or something that was
and they figured out that it was forged and that Picard was in the right the whole time. Like all of it was
right. Yeah,
all of it worked out in the end exactly the way it was supposed to.
Right. It just
except for the Frankie guy.
What do you think? You have not weighed in.
I enjoyed it. I think that there were all these problems with it. You're right, but I think seeing it as a TOS with a TNG skin, I enjoyed the episode, but I don't think it is proper Star Trek. I think you're right. There is a moral dilemma that Picard struggles with as to whether or not he did make the right choice, which was fun to see. He said, like, he kind of talks about that, and that was the character moment that I was talking about that I enjoyed, where he was saying like he's always believed that he made the right choice there, but now he doesn't know, and whatever he said there, it was just a nice moment.
Yeah, and maybe it would have been better if he was questioning himself, and all of a sudden he becomes sort of insecure as a captain, and he's forced to make, instead of this whole thing where he's dreaming up this scenario at the end of the episode, why not put him in a different scenario where he questions his decisions? And whether or not he made the right one back then, he kind of has to move on and figure out, like, hey, well, I can't change the past, even though I made a mistake, and I don't know what is the right thing to do, but I'm just going to go with my gut. And he has to kind of regain his mojo, as it were. That would have been more interesting. I don't know if it would have made it a better Star Trek episode, but it would have at least been a better arc for Picard in this episode, because I think nothing really. He's just sort of a victim, as opposed to it being about Picard.
Right. Well, and you saying that just kind of made me realize I feel like a lot of episodes, the whole story takes place at a point. Like the exocomps, they're only at the station. They never travel anywhere else in that episode. This episode was with the conflict with the Ferengi in space, and they stayed there. Like, they didn't travel anywhere else and have another conflict later. It's interesting to think that episodes could have been, I guess, more fleshed out if we had seen kind of what you were just saying, like the repercussions of something that happened in Act 1 is now taking place at a different location in Act 3. And we're seeing, what the consequences were of what happened in Act 1.
Right. Just to have a little bit more scale. That's what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. And it doesn't just get resolved at that one place and they move on.
Yeah. And that's what I think that's what we both like about other episodes, where they're going from place to place, and it kind of feels a little bit more like a movie than it does just very episodic in location. It's like, oh, we're here, and which is how TOS was usually. I think the vast majority of them take place on a single planet or on the ship doing something. It's never because they're going from place to place. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would say, and just the science fiction element of it, I think you're right. Like, yes, it is a science fiction, but I don't think it's unique at all. The mind control, the MacGuffin sphere is,
Orb.
The orb, but the mind control of someone else to either see or do something, that's not unique by any stretch. So,
So it's a no on that?
No, yes.
Oh yeah,
I
liked it.
I did enjoy it.
Okay. Well, you're wrong.
We can, we can disagree.
We can disagree to disagree.
Yeah. So, well, I guess with that, let's see what we're watching next.
Okay. Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 19, Through the Looking Glass. Have you heard this one?
Fun. Yeah, it's a mirror episode.
Cisco is abducted by a double of O'Brien.
Okay.
Who takes him to the mirror universe that Kira and Bashir visited a year ago. Actually, that sounds interesting. She's wearing, like, in the thing, she's wearing, like, a Tila costume. And, I mean, I feel like maybe we should watch the other one first, but that's not going to happen. So let's just watch this one and see what happens.
I was going to say we can if you want to. But I don't remember them, like, except for unless they do like a previously on Deep Space Nine, which that'll give us all the information we need. I don't remember them doing sequels to one-off episodes. You know, like it was a continuation of a story arc, and they would reference it in a way that was. They provided all the information you needed to know. They didn't do a direct sequel, so I don't think we need to watch the first one. But do you want to?
The completist in me wants to, but I think that's a dangerous road to go down. I will say that they mentioned a mirror universe, which is I think a big deal in Discovery. I don't know because I haven't seen it, but I remember hearing about some sort of mirror universe or something like that.
Right.
But I wonder if it's the same thing. There's no way to know.
Right. Well, and it's funny too because I just realized all of the odd series have had mirror universes. I mean, I guess Discovery doesn't count because it was the sixth one to come out. But TOS, DS9, and Enterprise.
You're right. Wow. Nice observation, except for Discovery. As long as we don't count one of the Star Trek it still works.
I mean, so many old school fans don't count it anyway, so why should we?
Yeah. All right, so should we go watch this?
Watch it? Yeah.
Let's go watch it.
Okay.